We have Fireside Chat, using new platforms and avenues of technology to amplify storytelling in marketing. So for this, we have amongst us Mr. Abhishek Guliani, Chief Executive Officer, H+K Strategies Session Chair. Can we have you, sir, here? We have with us Ms. Kanika Mittal, Country Head Twitter. Hello, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us here. Can we have you guys on dais? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them with a big hand. Some interesting insights coming your way. Thank you.
Hello. I just want to kick off first by thanking all the sponsors and Vijoya for putting this together. And Kanika, thank you so much for taking out the time. I know you're very busy right now and coming all the way from Gurgaon, but thank you for taking out the time. Let me just kick off by saying that we've been talking about platforms and avenues of technology that is coming up. You're at the thick of it yourself. But storytelling continues to be very, very critical, right? I mean, we've seen how marketing or avenues of marketing have grown over the years, right? There was print, there was newspaper, radio, television, social media. There is now AI conversations, and there's sound that is also becoming central to conversations that marketers are doing. How important do you think at the center of all this is still storytelling?
Wonderful. Can you hear me at the back? Awesome. Thanks, Abhishek, and thank you, AdGully, for having me. I thought the topic was so interesting, and you've hit it right off the bat by asking the core question that what is the importance of storytelling, and then of course the whole, which kind of leads us to the question that there is so much of emotion in storytelling, so what happens to that aspect, which is the most critical aspect in storytelling? I'd like to share two things here. What happens is that when a marketer starts to create his strategy in a world that is so disrupted and so diverse, there is a natural motivation to do things which are very KPI-driven, very, I would say, performance marketing-driven, which can deliver immediate results. And there is this whole piece where results from the consumer take center stage, even before we have built an emotional, long-lasting, successful relationship with the customer. And ultimately, a sign of success is how loyal and how how much your customers really advocate for you. And that can only come as a result of relationship building, which then in turn comes through the art of storytelling. So just by running an ad, which is very performance-centric, or by having the mindset, which is very, very KPI-driven, it will not serve the purpose alone. So first and foremost, to be able to build that relationship, you cannot forget the importance of storytelling. And as a marketer, it's your responsibility to constantly disrupt boardroom conversations and bring back the emphasis on storytelling. So I would say that's the why of it. And then just a little bit on the execution side, I think what is important is that while you keep storytelling as a key piece of your strategy, you do adapt to the formats. So maybe shorter storytelling works better than longer. Maybe storytelling can be done through GIFs, not just videos. Maybe storytelling can be enabled through a bit of technology than just done through a brainstorming session. So you can adapt on the format, but don't compromise on the core principle of storytelling.
That's from a marketer perspective, and let me just now take it to the consumer side of this.
Right.
And typically, they'd say that Indian consumers look at buying from a more functional need perspective. How do you turn that conversation towards the more emotion side? Because that, everybody says, brings in more longevity to relationship that you hold with your consumers. What is your play on that?
At Twitter, we had done this research at great length, and it told us that cultural relevance is actually the third biggest driver to purchase. And cultural relevance is all about emotional storytelling, tapping into the passion points of your consumers, and leveraging connect moments throughout the year, be it around festivals like Diwali, Holi, etc., be it around marquee events like a huge sporting event or a music concert happening in the country, or just some big news item or entertainment piece which is very topical and trending. And you can kind of latch on to it and create a story for your customers that ties back to your brand's value. So the idea is that cultural relevance is actually the third biggest driver to purchase. So the results that you're looking for from your consumer will come if and only if you are culturally relevant to your set of consumers. And you can't do that with the right degree of storytelling. So while we may think that functionality is the biggest play, and yes, price and quality will probably be 1 and 2, but can you imagine that third is cultural relevance? And when you want to create that point of differentiation with your customer, that when he's at an edge case between a couple of brands, one brand that is culturally relevant and another that is not, I'm 100% sure that the customer will gravitate towards a brand where he has seen some of his own values, his own passion points reflected, or he has been entertained by the brand, or he has found something about that brand which is interesting and appeals to him as an individual rather than him as just a customer. So I feel like that makes a huge difference from a customer standpoint as well.
So if cultural references and emotional conversations are central, when do we not do an emotional conversation? When does a marketer think this is not the time to build that link? Or does it differentiate between whether you're a B2C customer or you're a B2B marketer, what the kind of brand that you work with? How does one look at that space?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point of view, and I get this question a lot, that how do things become different in a B2C versus a B2B world? See, ultimately you are connecting with your customer who has an emotional side, who has certain preferences. So in a B2B, it might be a CEO, a CIO, or a CTO, but ultimately he's also your customer and an individual with strong preferences and passion points. And as a B2B brand, you will try to appeal to those. Otherwise, how will you differentiate? And how will you truly make a difference? When it comes to your B2C customer also, he's also an individual, although in a different capacity altogether. And storytelling is all about building an appeal with that individual. It could be a customer in an organization, or it could be a customer anywhere else. But the connection happens through the art of storytelling. So I don't think it differs too much in a B2B and B2C context from that lens. Of course, your media strategy is where the difference will come in. But to answer your previous question, which was about when do you really stop telling the story, I would say that when your customer is at the point of sale, for example, in a store or in a demo, or just in an environment where he's extremely keen to know, what am I shelling my money out for? I think that is the time where you kind of go all out on the functional side of your product, because the emotional side of your product has already brought him to your doorstep. So maybe there you can shift gears and overemphasize on the functionality at the point of sale.
From here, I just want to take you to this, sticking on the storytelling concept, and you spoke about previously about cultural references. How do you map this to the diversity of our beautiful country? Language changes, states, as we move around from state to state, buying habits changes. Each product is looked at differently. The purchasing patterns of why do you buy changes. How does a marketer look at that from a central thought of storytelling?
I think that's the beautiful thing about stories. Like when you get them right, you can really connect with a very diverse set of consumer, irrespective of what part of the country they stay in or what language they speak or any other such regional preferences. When you get the core and the essence of your story right, you will resonate across different sets of consumers. I think what you can do to take things a step further is make sure that regionalization is a strong part of your content strategy, which could mean that your assets are always available in regional languages. When you're tweeting or you're putting content out on social media, it's not just in English, but you also consider doing regional content. So little things like that will make a huge difference in terms of ensuring that you are also building a chord with customers in their language and where they stay. And I feel like the diversity of festivals and events is actually a very strong point for India, because that means that you can have a very robust Connect calendar through the year where you map out Connect opportunities. The good thing is we already know what will be the dates or what will be the exact moments where such opportunities will peak, and you can plan for them. When you plan for participation, you can hope to go viral as well, which will again add to the dimension and make sure that your content is seen by a very diverse set of consumers. So I feel like the diversity is a strength, But the only thing is that you need to make sure that you're well planned, you have a calendar in place, you have a team in place that can tap into multiple opportunities, and you're not leaving things to chance.
Want to give us an example of something that you've done with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would absolutely love to. So, and I'll take an example of a micro connect moment first and then go to a macro connect moment. For example, on World Photography Day, we did an amazing association with one of the smartphone brands where we were able to showcase the best of tips in photography through phones on our platform in a very diverse way. So consumers were getting tips and tricks, not just from the lens of just another passionate consumer or let's say an absolute professional, but really micro-influencers who had something very different to say about photography, were essentially put together in the form of compelling videos and other content. And a complete celebration happened around something called World Photography Day, which I'm sure many of us had not even heard of before we made it big. Similarly, around Diwali, another smartphone brand did something amazing where the photographs of Diwali celebration across various homes were actually selected via our platform and then showcased on different billboards and also through other mediums. So it was fan-sourced photographic content around a key moment like Diwali, which came from all parts and all sections of the country. So it really varies. It depends entirely on the brand's value and the message they want to promote at that time. But what is common between the two things is pre-planning and making a conscious effort to participate in moments that are of value to your brand and customers.
I mean, now that we've agreed or you've stated that storytelling remains at the center of whichever journey of the marketeers in terms of platforms, how ready do you think marketers are with this whole technology? If you just shift the conversation now from technology to the core of this conversation around the platforms, and where are we? Where are marketers right now in this journey?
Very interesting question, Abhishek. And I must say that I think one of the fastest groups to adapt and adopt very quickly are marketers. I think our profession is like that, right? Like you have that, so to say, almost like a promise that you have made to yourself that as a marketer, as a good marketer, you would want to disrupt. How many times we've heard that, right? Let's disrupt, let's dominate, let's make a difference, the 3Ds. And when you do want to disrupt or you want to dominate or you want to make a difference, then you kind of step back and start thinking how to really go about it. And one of the biggest things that you start doing intuitively is then you become very agile and you adapt and you adopt to new technologies very quickly, which is why India saw one of the fastest rates of adoption for digital. And even today, India continues to be one of the fastest growing internet advertising markets across the world with double-digit CAGR growth. And that's happening because marketers across sectors, across the country, small to large to medium enterprises, have been adopting digital at a phenomenal pace. So just building on that, when a new technology is launched, be it in artificial intelligence, which is of course the buzzword today, again, if you notice, if you go to any platform, you will notice that a very active community of people talking about it are actually marketers. There are already tips in place on where in marketing can you use artificial intelligence. There are already papers published on what kind of jobs will become redundant in marketing and what kind of jobs will become easier in marketing because of the availability of artificial intelligence. So I feel that once a technology is launched, marketers adapt to it very quickly. What remains to be established is the ROI. For example, a lot of marketers did jump the bandwagon on metaverse. But has metaverse really paid off vis-a-vis the effort, vis-a-vis the investment into creating a similar delta in terms of the returns that they were looking for is yet to be established.
There's a debate among marketers whether it's a marketer's world or a consumer's world, right? Now with this advent of technology and digital world, the consumer is now driving those conversations. How does a marketer think about his strategy when the consumer is sitting in with the digital world with you at that time? They're giving you real-time feedback. And I mean, your platform is used
Of course.
for that so much.
Right, right. Oh my God, it's such a fundamental change that has happened for marketers across the board. I remember there was a time where communication and marketing was very horizontal. So it's a newspaper ad, it's static, you see it, right? And there's no conversation happening back to it. Similarly for television and other such mediums. But today the communication with customers is so vertical. It's like it's happening in a way where you have to respond back. And if you don't respond back, then probably you're losing top of mind salience with that customer because he has reached out to you. He has chosen to reach out to you. So I would say this is a huge blessing. And what we have noticed is that brands that actually converse back with their customers or actively take the effort to be the first ones to converse with their customers, they actually build a base of very loyal customers. So if you look at several new age fintech brands, or if you look at some of the smartphone brands, they are built on fandom. They are built on consumer-made worlds, or what we called fan-made worlds, which used to never happen before, right? Fans were for entertainment. But today they are fans of brands. There are communities which have been created organically because consumers have loved a certain way in which the brand presented themselves or how the product was. Now, if you want these fan communities, you want this set of loyalists, then you have to walk the mile and talk to them. You can't possibly expect that through static media it can happen. So I feel like if you have to survive with your customers, it's a skill that you have to pick up and master and be on top of, and it'll give you enough and more benefits in the long run. So the rewards are worth going all the way in terms of effort.
So there's augmented, there's virtual, there is videos.
Yes.
What's right? What do marketers do? How does that work?
I think it really varies from brand to brand. I know of late a lot of automotive brands, when they couldn't do physical launches in the pandemic, realized that even big automobile car brands can actually launch virtually through augmented reality or through watch parties and other such live shows where they would save the cost of production of doing a gala event and a dinner and put that into technology, whether it's in the form of videos or whether it's in the form of augmented reality or any other piece, even metaverse for that matter, and really engage the consumers using the digital medium. And the beauty of it is that the consumer engages back. So they like, they heart, they put the comments, they get real-time replies from the brand. And suddenly brands realize that the experience is even more elevated than a physical event, because in a physical event, your customers don't really, consumers don't really engage back with you. They come and they see something and they go back, unless it's the media and they're getting a bite from the MD of the MD of the company, which I'm sure Abhishek will really relate to. I think it's limited engagement in an offline event. But the moment you move it to online, you can play around with the formats depending on your category, and you can engage and have live interactions with your customers.
I want to just bring back this whole technology storytelling conversation around the fact that some of the marketeers and a lot of us from communications were first to mobile, first to social media, and then there is this whole advent of technology that's happening. How does a marketer prepare for something like this? Because it's ever evolving, and some of us have entered the mobile world. So, and a lot of the customers are actually today getting born into using digital, augmented, virtual as a part of their regular journey. What do you think the marketers who are coming from that side supposed to play this?
It is, I think up till about 3 or 4 years back, this was actually a very real problem because digital talent was far and few, simply because, like you said, they hadn't had the exposure or hadn't had the training. But if you really look around now, the same thing has gotten significantly enabled through the rise of online education, courses, webinars, thought leadership, and various other materials that are available to a marketer should he wish to upskill himself. So I would say that's the first thing, that the availability of knowledge to upskill yourself as a marketer is far higher. Secondly, I feel like a lot of marketers have taken the risk and they've learned on the job. And having learned on the job for 3-4 years, they have imparted that training back. So you naturally have a more galvanized talent pool in digital now that can react and kind of go with the flow on this very, very disruptive, ever-evolving and dynamic and changing marketing world. So I think that is another thing that has made a huge difference. And I would say the third thing is that the general mindset of the marketer has also evolved. If you remember earlier, it was all about doing this big fancy film on TV. Then for a while it moved to doing big billboards and big print. So those were the trends. But today, if you ask a marketer, that's probably one item on a list of 10 different things that he wants to do. So there is a shift of mindset that has been enabled through a sense of FOMO. When 10 brands use digital, another 50 will follow because they feel that they're missing out on something. And then, of course, everybody wants to go viral at some point in time. They want to trend. So all of that encourages marketers to, just make sure they're on top of their game and they are willing to unlearn and relearn and play the game.
I want to just come to now the role AI and ML are going to play, right? And we've spoken about cultural references, customer, emotional branding, emotional marketing, and how does that play into, we've spoken about how technologies is getting integrated in what marketers need to look at. But when you're building a storytelling, there are much more aspects to that, right? In terms of the tone of language, how do you present your idea and things like that. How does a marketer today look at AI for that in terms of when they're trying to build their storytelling in that? And how does that make an emotional connect? But the second part is, how do you measure it? How do you put together an ROI into it?
Yeah. I would completely agree on the second part that, it takes a while to build ROI, and till then it's a hit and a trial piece. So I believe then it becomes a matter of organizational priority and the brand's objectives at a certain given point in time, whether or not to adopt into a trend which is huge in the market at the moment. For example, if you take the, what the most talked about buzzword right now, which is ChatGPT, it really depends on how you are using it. An artificial intelligence tool cannot write a brand new story for you. If you have an angle in mind, only your mind will be able to do justice to it, or maybe some brainstorming sessions with humans who are building that story and the narrative with you will be able to do justice to it. So I believe artificial intelligence can provide efficiency. It can provide you with some sort of outline, with some sort of groundwork, but what it cannot do for you is decision making, and what it does not have is EQ, which is emotional quotient. Two critical, I would say, pieces or pillars to use technology effectively and smartly is to be able to know that what the technology actually cannot deliver for you. And I think here is where I hope we have to kind of understand and know that you are the decision maker ultimately. ChatGPT or any other AI model cannot decide for you, number one. And number two, it does not have EQ. And that, frankly, it can never get replaced. That'll always be the marketer's job.
Marketers have been expert in this whole emotion. You know when to tell a story, on how to make their audiences sad, cry, whereas computers don't cry when they hear sad stories. How does that interface, do you think, will work in the future, where how do marketers and technology or machines come together at a common point? Will some portions be completely replaced by machines? What will be a marketer's role in the future?
Well, I think there's a lot of discussion and debate, and frankly, it's early days to see what will get replaced temporarily, what will get replaced in the long run. But I think some of the early thinking that we are seeing around this is that, let's say if you want to write a certain style of copy and content for your social media posts, and if you're very, very clear on your strategy, on the ethos, the pathos that you want to create, and if you're very clear about the core message, then perhaps different versions of it for, let's say, Monday motivation or Thursday throwback or, Saturday surprise, when you have a strategy in place and the core message in place, then maybe an artificial intelligence machine can put together the words for you, and you simply have to publish them. Of course, having someone to run their eye, after someone's kind of run their eyes over it, as opposed to someone writing that from scratch. So that could be an example where efficiency comes in, some time gets saved, but ultimately there is a human thought that has gone behind the core messaging and establishing the ethos and giving the right brief. And then at the end of it, again, before the content finally engages with your customer, you will need a pair of human eyes to make sure it's right. No brand and no marketer will want to risk something which is machine generated without having a look at it. They put it in front of the consumer. That could be a huge risk. So there can be efficiency in the middle of the process, but the beginning and the end will always be a marketer and a human.
There is a marketer behind a technology platform too who's pushing that technology. How does the marketer outside of that look at what to go for and what not to go for? Because every marketer who's, say, running a technology story is pushing for like the whole conversation that's happening around ChatGPT, and how does that work? When do you say, no, let me hold back? Right. Or when do you risk holding too much back and the technology is kind of gone, like the way you spoke about metaverse?
Right. I think it really is a factor of organizational priority, the journey in which the brand is. Is it more in the startup stage? Is it looking to disrupt the market? What is its risk-taking capabilities and so on? So I think it will really vary from company to company and brand to brand. And it'll be difficult to have like some set of principles around this. What I can say and what I do see emerging also through all the research that's happening on AI is a certain degree of efficiency and speed that will come in, maybe in industries like customer service, etc., where there are a lot of bots and all required, that can get disrupted through AI. But I think to have the knack on when to use and how much to use and when to stop will only emerge over a period of time. It's very nascent right now. It's like how marketers used to worry about shifting dollars from TOI front page to the masthead of, let's say a big e-commerce platform or any other big digital platform like ours, for example. Taking a spotlight on Twitter, for example. But today they don't even blink an eye. It's considered to be a core part of their strategy. But it happened over a period of time. And I think similarly, AI and all of these new pieces will go over a certain period of evolution. There'll be stiff competition in the market, and then finally the customer and the marketer will emerge the king.
You mean Viacom and Aaj Tak?
Good one.
Last question, right? How do you decide budgets? Because ultimately it boils down to that. How do you push your budgets?
I think what you're trying to ask is how do you then get the ROI? Well, I think sometimes you have to stay with something for a while before it starts giving you return. So while there is no formula, on deciding marketing budgets, it's the holy grail at the end of the day that kind of really varies from brand to brand and marketer to marketer. But the only thing I feel strongly is that if you decide to go for something, give it its adequate amount of time and see it through. Don't pull the plug so quickly that there is no concrete learning and no I would say, valuable next step emerging out of it. So I know we very often say that if you have to fail very quickly and fail very cheaply. I think that applies more to product and technology where there is a way to quickly test, get feedback, and change. But I think in marketing where we are appealing to a consumer over a period of time, and like you said, building an emotional connection, we cannot take such quick decisions. So the only recommendation I would have give it the necessary amount of time before you decide to make it bigger or you take a step back, and that will automatically determine in the long run how much budget you should be putting on it.
So I won't end it with any last thoughts, but I'd say any thoughts for the future?
Really excited about the future. I think the kind of innovation that is happening right now is absolutely mind-blowing. And any marketer today is lucky to be in this profession. Because they can experiment with so much and they will have wonderful stories of their own professional journey to share as they kind of go along this disruption.
Thank you so much, Kanika, for doing this.
Thank you so much. I think fantastic questions. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kanika, for joining us here. Thank you so much, Mr. Guliani, for taking this session. Yeah, that was quite an interesting session. Thank you so much for sharing ways on how to, build an emotional connect with customers by using technology. That was quite interesting.